Okay, so good morning and welcome to Political Liaison of June 27th. I'm going to call the meeting to order. First, identify of any media on the line. I acknowledge the chat, Bree from the Turtle Island News. Is there any other representatives from the Truro Times? Okay, seeing as no representatives from the Truro Times, we'll identify Bree from the Turtle Island News. That'll lead us into the next item on the agenda, which then changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda.
I have one.
Helen?
Traffic control for the powwow.
Okay, thanks, Helen. Is there anything further? Okay, seeing or hearing none, I'll look to a mover and seconder to adopt the agenda with the one new business item. Moved by Helen, second by Michelle. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. We'll declare any conflict as we move through the agenda. We have no delegations or presentations this morning, so we'll go right into the adoption of the political liaison minutes of May 30th.
I'll move. I'll second.
Moved by Michelle, second by Carrie. Are there any questions, comments? Okay, seeing, hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Lifelong learning. So there should be a task force update, which would be within your Dropbox. Looking to see if there's any questions, comments. I'm pretty sure there should still be an update. Is there any challenges within your Dropbox with a task force update? Further questions, comments?
Hey, Chief, it's Nathan. Do you need someone to accept this information?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll move.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you, Nathan. It's moved by Nathan. Is there a seconder?
I will.
Second by Michelle. Okay, just looking to any further questions or comments. Seeing or hearing none, all in favor to accept the update as information? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. The next item is the CAP team activities. This is for May and June. Looking to see if Taylor, I see Taylor online, or Lonnie, if you can report.
Okay, Mark, I think Robin's online too, since this is her area. She would want to go through that.
Sure, thanks, Lonnie. I'll pass the floor over to yourself, Robin.
Thanks, Mark. I think as Nathan said, we do actually now have some political representation coming to our meetings now. And so any of the ones that are, politically based, we do have that representation. Most of the others are just meetings reviewing official plans or specific projects that, we may want to put our input as far as environmental concerns or archaeology concerns. But there's nothing that I recall that stands out that's that we need to discuss further at this point.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Robin. I know we will be also doing some more strategy work in regards to the city of Brantford as well, and some things happening there. So I know that work is also ongoing. So just looking to see, then I'll open the floor up for any questions, comments in relation to both the May and June CAP activity. I do know Christopher from my well tries to get to as many as we can just to make sure that there's that continuity. So trying to make that really effort. And again, thanks Nathan for as well joining when you can. Looking or seeing that there's no questions or comments, I will look to a mover and seconder at this point to accept.
I had a question.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Michelle.
The report, is it sent off to both papers?
No, we don't send it to anyone except council. I don't know what council does with it at that point.
Do we do anything with it, Chief?
So we usually, again, it's not really sent out to media unless it's media requests it specifically. But if that's the nature of what council would like to do, I mean, obviously there's no problem with it.
Comments?
Helen?
Well, I'm going back to our newsletter again. We could put it in the newsletter every month just to show people what kind of different projects that come to our attention. I know there's a lot. There's all different kinds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've been actually, Helen, and thanks for bringing this up. We've been wanting to do more with that newsletter when it relates to political. So I know Katie's online as well. Another item, but Katie, if you can even make note, we really want to start to utilize that newsletter when it comes to political items, and so that we're using another tool of informing community members. So that can definitely happen. Thanks, Helen. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, I will look for a mover and seconder to accept both May and June CAP activity report as information.
I'll move, Melba.
I'll second Mark Hazel.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Melba and seconded by Hazel. Once again, we'll ask for any further questions or comments. Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Favor.
Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Thank you for that, Robin. I'm going to continue moving down the agenda here. The next item is the Ontario liability and litigation. I'll look to see who will be speaking on this item. Again, the
Can
recommend.
you guys speak to this?
Oh, sorry. Over to you, Taylor.
Yeah, I think that is from off. I don't know if Lonnie wanted to explain more. Basically, the general idea is to use the liability that Ontario is facing in the litigation against us as leverage for to get things now instead of having to wait until the end of the trials. That as sort of a credit to what their liability will be. So for that way things can proceed now and we don't have to wait for more years and for after decisions to be made. So yeah, so just sort of like a leverage to be like if there's different things that we need now from Ontario to be like this could be a credit towards what you're gonna owe us later. And but we'll benefit from now instead of having to wait for years to benefit.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Taylor. I'll look to Lonnie. Is there anything further that you'd like to
Yeah.
add to that?
Yeah, I could. Yeah, sure. So, and the example we gave was what happened with the Brantford Casino and the Laurel Raceway Casino back in 2018 when Brantford was attempting to, well, the province was attempting to privatize, and they in fact did privatize all of the casino operations, the land-based casinos. And so where they were selling in a process of selling Brantford Casino and Laurel Raceway Casino without any consultation. Well, they had talked to us over the years about it. We'd always raised that issue with them that, hey, look, we're owed for accommodation for that because that sits on a Nathan Gage land claim in Brantford. The lands that were never surrendered, never sold. And so they tried to end run this and sell it without any kind of consultation or consent. So we threatened to bring an application in Superior Court to stop the sale, and that's when they came to the table, and that was the agreement we got. And specifically, what it said, among other things, we're not prejudiced in our lawsuit against Canada and Ontario. Yeah. And also that if Ontario ponies up regards to this, we'll give them a credit for that in the lawsuit that they could use to lessen their liability. So that was a good example of the pressure we have on Canada and Ontario to talk about these kind of things, consultation, accommodation, and trying to move things towards resolution. In our opinion, Canada and Ontario are liable to a great degree for the loss of our lands and resources. And for them now to start looking at making good on what they've taken from us, we said, well, we should be using this as a lever in other areas too. And we're particularly hamstrung in the area of all the lands that are being developed around us. Brantford, Brant County, Haldeman, and all the way up the track, that we don't have any means to stop what's going on or else make people talk to us. So we're hoping that, the council, and we'll try our best too, can talk to these ministers and deputy ministers and assistant deputy ministers of the Ontario government and say, look, you've got to put something in legislation that is stronger than it is now, because there's nothing there that says that, oh yeah, they got a duty to consult with Six Nations, but there's no duty to accommodate. And that's what we want help in accomplishing, because we're frustrated continually talking to proponents, municipalities, different government agencies, and they say, okay, we'll talk to you, but in the end, they're not prepared to give anything. And so here is one mechanism that we used in the past where we could say, look, here's, you're liable, Ontario, Canada, and we're talking more specifically about Ontario. And let's look at how you can, in the short term, until the lawsuit is eventually settled, because these things are going to come out in the end anyway, to lessen your liability and making legislation, regulations that strengthens the duty to accommodate on the lands that are being developed within the Haldimand Tract and maybe even the Nanfan Treaty area. So that's what we were looking for, council to take that tack, hopefully, and we'll take that. We have been taking that tack, and we want to do that more, to say. And I know council has the avenue to the politicians that we don't. That say, look, let's start talking about resolving some of our issues on the basis of what was done in the past with respect to the Brantford Casino and Laura Raceway. So that's the purpose of really what this briefing note is, just to say that we have this big stick in our behind us, but we're not using it. And I'd like to see council and us use that more as a lever to make these governments and municipalities more earnest and serious when they talk to us, instead of just saying, "Oh, we fulfilled our duty, we talked to you." So that was the purpose of this.
Okay, thanks for that further background to this. I have a number of hands being raised. I'll first begin with Nathan, over to Phil, and then Helen. Nathan, you have the floor.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks, Lonnie and Taylor, for the update. I guess I'm just looking first for the clarity in the recommended action, and I'm kind of hearing this as a scoping exercise first, in terms of getting those ministers to the table and compelling them. And I get your point. We are the elected council, but at the end of the day, I kind of need to ensure that if we do take this kind of course of action, that we're going to have that ammunition behind us in terms of our documentation and strategy to deal with these ministers. I think this is the first step to get us in the door on a topic like this. But I'm a little concerned that we don't have a full arsenal of tools at our disposal quite yet. Just by way of documentation and pulling the information together. That's where I'm kind of concerned. And the other aspect is, when we talk about kind of utilizing this as leverage and credit into the future, I think it's going to be important for us to track, these kind of dealings going forward in a very sophisticated way, so that information of what we do kind of is clear going into the future, right? Because I think we're going to go into the 59th council with a lot of this, and I want to set them up as well as best we can, kind of looking to the future. So just confirming that this is kind of looking at it from the scoping exercise, and the only concern I have right now is I don't feel equipped to go to battle with a minister on housing needs in Six Nations. I think we got to start pulling those numbers, start looking at what that strategy is going forward. So I'll leave my comments there. I'm interested in hearing what others have.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Nathan, for your comments. I'm going to go next over to Phil. And I have Helen and Hazel in queue. Phil, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chief. And this just follows right up to what Nathan had mentioned. I've been trying to get you involved, this council involved, since you first got in, as to the big picture on how massive the litigation is and how it's all tied together. And exactly the questions that Nathan brought up is what we have to strategize and I guess bring us up to speed on how the handle of this and what's your priorities, what's the inventory. I know we've done some strategizing with the numerous boards that I've been on, that at least that started where, what are your actual needs? We got the lifelong education learning education going on. And that's exactly what that is doing this inventory and strategizing how to move forward. The same with other departments that I've been able to deal with. Now, I can just repeat it again. We've got to have a session in-person session where we sit down with all the departments and do this inventory taking and set out exactly what Nathan says, a proper game plan for moving forward. Those are my comments. It's the same thing I've been saying since you got elected. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Phil. And I know this has been on the list, the long list rather of to do, and those are, I think, pieces where we'll have to coordinate on the administration side exactly what you're speaking of. So I'll look to that on Darren's piece as well. I'm going to go next to Helen, and then Hazel. Helen, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just questioned. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just questioned. Are we gonna be doing anything? I know Lonnie mentioned the casino and all that, but are we going to be doing anything about all those housing developments going up in Brantford, especially out in the west area? There's tons of them, like tons. Are we going to be doing anything about those, like trying to get money or something?
If I could answer that, Chief.
Sure.
Yes, we are talking to Brantford. We are talking to Brant County, and particularly, you know, that when the boundary expansion happened back in 2013, 2014, 2015, we were one time at the table, and in the end we got shut out. So that is still a sore spot with me, and I know with Phil too, that you know, we were supposed to be accommodated for all of those lands that were going under Brantford's jurisdiction, and that never happened. So and development is about to take off in those areas, although there has been a lot of development in Brant County as well, particularly around the Paris area. And what I'm saying is, yes, we are trying to have something done, but we don't have that that ability to stop them if they say no, because other than, you know, starting an individual lawsuit, which might be something that could be considered, but you know, but we've been concentrating more on our lawsuit against the feds in the province. But yeah, we need to look at, and that's what I'm saying, that something needs to be done as far as on the provincial level to make them stand up and say, yeah, wait, hold on, we can't just go full blast developing in these areas without consulting Six Nations and getting their approval. So, you know, that's what we want to. We want the ability to make them stand up and take notice and what's happening, because as of now, we don't have the veto power or the ability to get any accommodation from any of these developments that are occurring. And that's just the way the law is right now.
Yeah, I just wondered, because when I went to the Willett Hospital's 100th anniversary the other day, and the Brant County Mayor was speaking and talking about all the wonderful developments going on. That's I'm sitting there thinking, what about us?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I agree, and I think maybe just before I go over to Hazel, Christopher, maybe this is an opportunity as well. I know we've been discussing our reps at the AMO conference. Maybe that's an opportunity to further look to items discussed, you know, that we can discuss at that conference. Just want to see.
For sure, I'll add that to the list, but it's something we need to have further conversations about as well. And I can give everybody an update when we do the political updates on AMO plans.
Okay, perfect. Again, just further looking to strategize. Hazel, you have the floor.
In regards to all that's happening along the track and the lack of consideration for Six Nations, that's basically what it boils down to. It shows that there's no consideration. they just keep forging ahead with their developments. And I'm wondering if Six Nations called a general meeting with all of the communities up and down the tract to give them an outline of exactly what they need to do when they're thinking about development and how they're supposed to be considering Six Nations, because basically it's almost like they've taken the land, they do whatever they want with it, they know it's not theirs, but they still develop it, and they now it's almost like a slap in the face to Six Nations, where they don't even make any concessions on their behalf to share with them the considerations or make some kind of a I don't know, not an agreement, but some kind of a consideration for Six Nations. And maybe it would be a good time to tell them, like, our land claims are going to be hitting into the courts very, very soon. And the outcome of that, whatever it may be, just might have impact on what they're doing today without having any consideration for Six Nations. It just doesn't make any sense that basically it's like stolen lands. You steal something, you just do whatever you want with it, and you don't have to be accountable in no way. And here we are all these years later, still trying to figure out how to make them have consideration for Six Nations. So I'm just wondering what you think of having a big meeting with all the communities up and down the track to discuss the very situation that we're now talking about this morning. Thank you.
Just on that note, and that could be something maybe perhaps that we can even look to and further. I know that we've went back and forth on almost like the reminder letter that we were looking to send to each of the municipalities. Maybe that could be part of like a follow-up piece, inviting the different political representatives from the different municipalities, just in terms of Hazel's suggestion. I see Phil has his hand raised. Phil?
Yes, I guess I'm following up the Hazel. I mean, it's been a challenging couple of years, and politically nobody's been out and about. But in all the years I've been working at this stuff, I mean, we need the political backing of this council to go out and actually meet and greet exactly what Hazel brought up on every opportunity, bring these issues up to them. I know we've had working MOUs with previously, actually quite a few years back, and it appears nobody remembers them anymore, where there was political liaisons between a couple of municipalities to sit and discuss how are we going to get through these challenges, because they are challenges, and you get caught between federal responsibility, provincial responsibility, placed on the heads of the municipalities, who then place it on the developers. So I guess just to be blunt, you guys got to step up to the plate as a council and get active on these things. I mean, Lonnie's and his entire office has been out there on the front line, and we try to do things, and we've got to move this forward, people. This is serious. Exactly what Hazel said. Unless our political leadership is in their face, they're not going to take us seriously. I don't mean to be, I said what I said. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Phil. And obviously do agree in looking to those pieces as well, in terms of what is our next best step here. Are there any further?
Mark, it's Hazel. Can I have a further comment, Mark?
Sure, go ahead, Hazel.
Yeah, so and I agree with what Phil says, that we do have to step up. It's just almost like we're just cruising along, and we really need to get tough and, well, not tough, but stronger willed in getting our points across. And I think even before this land claims thing comes up in court, I think we should arrange to have a meeting with municipalities or whatever, and let the Six Nations provide their strong position of their intent, because it's got to stop somewhere. And I think this is the beginning of when council needs to be at their strongest point and tell them what Six Nations is going to do, and give them that message that from now on, because Six Nations is the owners of these lands, there's going to be some regulations and rules to follow. So that's my say. Thank you.
Thanks, Hazel. And again, do agree. And it's a matter of, and back to Nathan's point, in terms of that strategy session and so forth, to make sure again that we, we're going down the right path when we go and get into these discussions and what exactly we want. So I do agree with Phil, in terms of the step up of this council, and also in terms of that strategy session with full cap on, just exactly what our next step is going to look like. Is there any further questions or comments?
Yeah, it's Melba.
Sure, go ahead,
I think, now that we're having consistent updates, I guess, from the lands department, I think it's really great that we're starting on the inside to actually communicate what our actual needs are. And like I said, we need to strategize. But I think one of the areas that's really necessary is our housing. We all know that our housing is really in need of upgrade in terms of numbers. For example, we get reports from social and health. I guess how many people are in hotels, and where they're going to go, as I mentioned to Arliss, where are they going to go? Are they there for 6 months? Are they there for a year? Where are they going to go? So I think that's really important, and I'd like to see that comparison. Is the cities and the municipalities along up and down the river, are they suffering like we are with housing? So those are one of the areas that we need to strategize, I believe, anyway. I mean, we got inside confusion and disappointment and children suffering. They want to have their education here. They want to have their culture and practice as much as they can, but it's kind of difficult when you're in Brantford or wherever. And also we have to concentrate on, it was mentioned again, how we have housing out there for mental illness in various cities. And when it comes to housing, I sure would like to know, are they utilized? And how many? And how many families are out there? So we're using the outside housing departments in many ways, like hotels and the houses in Brantford, Hamilton, for mentally ill people. So I'd like to say that I think that's one of the priorities. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Melba, for your comments as well. And again, this is exactly the conversations and discussions we need to be having around getting creative of the solutions to our housing crisis, in addition to the bigger picture of things. Is there any further questions or comments? Okay, so there is a recommendation on the agenda that reads that the elected council requests meetings with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and Indigenous Affairs Ontario to discuss the potential for finding new and innovative ways to address our housing needs and to create more equitable relationships between Ontario and Six Nations of the Grand River. Further questions, comments? Okay, sorry, I'll go to a mover, moved by Melba. Is there a seconder? Second by Helen. Further questions, comments, Nathan?
Yeah, not necessarily related to the motion, but kind of. I'm just wondering if we also can consider ensuring that departments start getting us the information. I'm not even sure what to call it, but obviously this I would think this recommendation would trigger something from housing to get us the information that we need. But what I'm talking about is, can we start the process, Darren, with all departments based on kind of maybe a template coming out of the Lands and Resources Department, where we start pulling the information that Phil is talking about at the department level? Because Phil's right. You know, we've gone to the agencies. He's gone to the agencies. I'm on those boards when he's asking for those, but I think we need to get kind of started so that we're not behind the 8 ball. Started with all of our departments to pull these numbers in. But, you know, I'm just saying that kind of outside of this motion because I'm supportive of this motion as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I know Darren is off today, but if we can, Tammy, if you could just make a note, just on Nathan's comments, because I do agree as well on the administration side of all departments to start to get all the data, necessary data, ready to further back us up when we do have these meetings. So Tammy, if you could just give a thumbs up to make a note to bring up with Darren in our weekly check-in on this piece. And then we'll look to get that complete. So thanks, Nathan, for that. Further questions, comments, Lonnie?
Yes, to indicate that when we were doing exploratory discussions with Canada, Ontario from 2016 to 2018, we actually, Phil and I, mainly Phil's work, did a lot of that preliminary work. We did meet with all the departments. We hired contract people to help us to gather all that information about what was going to be needed in the future in regard having in mind that this lawsuit is eventually going to be successful one day, and we need to know what do we need as far as you know, hopefully we're going to get a lot of money from the lawsuit, and where can we apply that money? What are the needs of Six Nations? And we do have a preliminary reports on that, so we can start from there on you know, what the departments of council and others need, what their wish list is, and so that work has been started. It just needs to be updated and maybe a little bit more work needs to be done on it, but it has started.
That's definitely good points, and thanks, Lonnie, for that. I think in addition to, you know, the needs is obviously looking at you know, the big infrastructure gap that we have here, you know, water to homes, further housing, you know, the list goes on, roads, etc. Right? So you know, this is something that I think we could easily put together with a few individuals and getting the necessary information. So we'll continue to build on that, Lonnie. And when we go to the departments and request more. Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. So Christopher, if you can just flag this motion that was just passed, and we'll start to do further work on setting these meetings up in addition to the work that needs to be done on the administrative side and collecting the necessary information. Okay, Council, moving right along here. The next piece on the agenda is in relation to political updates. The first item I have is Katie on the line from Communications, where we'll be discussing, as we know, July 1st is coming up, Canada Day. I've asked Katie to look to our last year's statement as we're more concerned around obviously all of our children in the residential schools and the unmarked graves and so forth. So I'll pass the floor over to Katie in terms of what this year's July 1 looks like.
Thanks, Chief. Good morning, Council. Good morning, everybody. So yeah, as the Chief mentioned, I was asked to prepare a release similar to the one that we put out last year. So essentially what we said was we were asking people to stand in solidarity with us on July 1st. And when celebrating, consider the legacy of the residential school system on Indigenous peoples today. And as well, we said at the beginning of our statement that we would not be recognizing Canada Day on Six Nations. So in looking to that statement from last year, I have drafted up a similar one this year, essentially saying that we will not be recognizing Canada Day again this year, and that, due to the discoveries of all of the unmarked graves last year, we are still dealing with this trauma being having to be confronted again due to that, and essentially just asking, saying thank you for the support that we received last year and asking that that solidarity extends to this year and beyond, as well as some crisis numbers for community members as we, sort of confront these traumas once again. So I've drafted that statement. I've sent that to the Chief's office. However, Chief Hill, I'm not sure if you're looking for further input or comments, concerns with the rest of council. I'm open to hear any suggestions or comments.
Thanks, Katie. I'm wondering maybe if you could just do a share screen into your, I know I did receive your statement, but perhaps maybe we could just do a read through, and if there's any additional edits or so forth from any counselors, then we'll go from there. So if you would like to, if you can just read it out, Katie, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So it reads, as we continue to reflect on Canada's colonial legacy and its continued impact on Indigenous peoples, Six Nations will once again not be recognizing Canada Day on July 1st, 2022. Similar to last year, we are instead encouraging everyone to wear orange to remember the children lost to the residential school system and to honor the survivors. We hope that rather than a day of celebration, July 1st can be a day of somber reflection and renewed commitments to furthering the process of reconciliation. Indigenous communities across Turtle Island continue to grapple with last year's findings of unmarked graves at numerous former residential school sites across the country. Those discoveries have forced our people to relive the trauma of the residential school system and led to long overdue confrontations of Canada's role in the egregious loss of Indigenous cultures across the country. Although I understand that July 1st is typically a day of celebration for many, I ask that people use this day as an opportunity to reflect on what it means to be Canadian while Indigenous people in this country continue to bear the scars of the residential school system, stated elected Chief Mark Hill. We are very touched by the support we received last year and would be pleased if that overwhelming sense of solidarity could be extended to this year's July 1st as well. Community members are reminded that there are resources available to you if you are in need of support, and that includes the mobile crisis line, Six Nations mental health and addictions, as well as the National Indian Residential School Crisis Line.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that, Katie. I'll look to, at this point, for any further questions or comments. Nathan.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks, Katie. I really like the tone of this and definitely supportive of that. I am a stickler when it comes to the use of Indigenous peoples and that particular term, because it is inclusive of the Inuit, it's inclusive of Métis, and even some of these, self-identified. And I feel that's too broad. I think if council agrees, Chief, that maybe just switching out where we do say Indigenous people throughout the entire release and just switch that over to something more commonly understood as First Nations, because I think that's more specific to us. But other than that, I feel the tone is perfect.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nathan, for your comments and edits as well. I'll look to full council for those. I see Helen has her hand raised. Helen?
Yeah, I agree with Nathan. I don't like using the word Indigenous. Besides, are we speaking for all Indigenous or for Six Nations? We should be saying Six Nations, I guess. We're speaking for us, right? We're not speaking for all Indigenous people. But I don't like that word either. I don't like Aboriginal either, but I just say Indians because that's what I've said all my life. But I agree with Nathan, First Nations or something.
Okay, thanks, thanks, Helen, for your comments as well. So we'll look to Katie to just make those edits. Is there any?
Yeah, I just want to ask, so any function that you might have that represents this day, actually it's almost like a day of mourning um after the findings of the unmarked graves of the residential school children. So I think any activity that may be done in terms of on this specific day would indicate that you're celebrating Canada Day, right? So that's why there should be no functions whatsoever. Is that right?
I mean, basically, Hazel, yeah, that's what we're looking, with these statements is to, stand in solidarity with us. But obviously, we can't control what people choose to do, and if they so choose to have events in their, in their own way, then we just want to make sure that there's these reminders of we're still searching for graves at these sites.
Yeah. I guess what was in my mind is that, say if the council had some kind of an event in the park, in the Schweigen Betts Park. But then again, I think, well, if you do anything, you're actually putting on some kind of a celebration. So
Yeah, and that's
I guess it's better not to do anything.
Yeah, that's it. And we discussed this as well. And we thought, at this point in time, just because there's so many events that we've been having to plan and so forth, bread and cheese, Solidarity Day, the list goes on. We thought that this a statement would suffice at this point in time.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I will look then to a mover and seconder to accept the statement that Katie has prepared with the edit of the term Indigenous people changed to First Nations. Is there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, can I then look to a mover and seconder to release, or rather accept and release the statement? Moved by Nathan, seconded. Second by we don't necessarily really need it, but I think just in a sense of to actionize it. I know we can obviously do it without, but I'm just going to go with the motion at this point.
Okay.
Is there any further questions or comments? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Motion to waive second reading. Is there a mover and seconder to waive second reading?
I'll move, Hazel.
Second.
Moved by Hazel, second by Nathan. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, Katie, thank you for joining us, and you can get that released with those one change and edit, and we'll look to go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, Council, that leads us into our next item, which Christopher will be also assisting us in this update. So obviously we've seen the cabinet announcement for Ford. And there's a few other items in relation to the AMO planning. I know there's some things happening on the political side as well. So I'm going to pass the floor over to Christopher.
Yeah, Chief. So as the Chief was mentioning, there was a new cabinet announced last week. There's always a cabinet shuffle, of course, in the wake of every provincial election and in the wake of every federal election. And this one was no different. So Premier Ford announced his new cabinet late last week on Friday, and it was kind of stability was sort of the theme, if you will. It's a slightly larger cabinet. He's focused it on growing the economy, building infrastructure, and managing the healthcare system. But a lot of the portfolios remain in the hands of the same ministers who were there before, particularly major portfolios like, for us, Greg Rickford, the Minister of Northern Development and the Minister for Indigenous Affairs, he remains in place. Other significant ministers remaining in place, Caroline Mulrooney at Transportation. She's mandated with the construction of Highway 413, and I know we've discussed that recently as well. The Minister of Finance remains Peter Bethenthal. The Attorney General remains Doug Downey. Monty McNaughton remains at Labour, and he had a big hand in the current government's election campaign. Steve Clark remains Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Stephen Lecce remains in Education. The Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks is still David Piccini, Todd Smith at Energy, Kinga Thurma at Infrastructure, and I won't go through the full list. Some noteworthy changes would include Sylvia Jones, formerly the Solicitor General, who is now the new Minister for Health and the Deputy Premier. So that's an important change. And the new Solicitor General is new Minister Michael Kersner. And of course, we'll have to have some engagement there with him in the near future as well. And then there are some new ministers, such as Neil Lumsden from nearby Hamilton East Stony Creek, who is now at Tourism, Culture and Sport. Graydon Smith, who's the new Minister for Natural Resources and Forestry. And also at Housing, which we were just discussing, Michael Parth is now the new Assistant or Associate Minister of Housing. Some other items of note, the Brantford Brant MPP, where Six Nations is located, Will Bauma, some had expected him to be appointed. He was not included. Lisa McLeod is no longer a member of Cabinet. And anyway, I'm happy to answer any other questions about the new Cabinet now or later. But the government will have to pass its budget, which was announced shortly before the election as a sort of campaign platform of sorts. That budget was not passed, it was merely presented. And so that will have to be passed in the near future. So there's a lot of speculation that the government will recall the legislature for a special summer session, but there's no confirmation of that yet. So that's just sort of a quick look at the cabinet shuffle from a few days ago. And of course, the Chief's office will be engaging with a number of those ministers. As the Chief had mentioned, we are planning to engage at the AMO conference, which is taking place in Ottawa in mid-August. So the Chief will go, and we'll probably have a few others go as well, to flag some of our key issues with certain ministers who will be present. Now, we have put in a preliminary request to engage with the new Solicitor General, particularly on prosecution and enforcement issues facing Six Nations, and in particular some challenges caused for Six Nations by prosecutors in Brantford. That's a major issue for us, and we're going to be raising that with the new Solicitor General, as well as the Government of Ontario's openness to potential renegotiation of the tripartite police services agreement that Six Nations is party to with both the Government of Ontario and the Government of Canada. We have also reached out to the Ministry of Indigenous Affairs. Of course, there are a lot of issues that we'd love to discuss with Minister Rickford, and the Chief has regular conversations with him as well. So we want to keep up that relationship and that engagement, including on housing, as the motion that the Council has passed indicated. And then some other ministers like the Minister for Environment, Conservation and Parks, because there are unfortunately officials with that ministry, frontline public servants who are, shall we say, misinforming municipalities and developers about how to engage with Six Nations. And that's causing challenges as well. So that's something that we're going to have to engage with. So that's just kind of a brief overview of what we're thinking in terms of the AMO conference engagement. And we are also planning in the Chief's office to release very soon a letter as the chief was mentioning earlier in this meeting, a letter to the municipalities on the Haldeman Tract to correct some misinformation out there and to properly inform them about Six Nations expectations and how to engage with Six Nations. So that letter will be hopefully going out soon as well and is in the works. And that's basically my update for now.
Okay, thank you. Now, appreciate that, Christopher. Looking to any questions, comments for Christopher or myself, Nathan?
Thanks, Christopher, and thanks, Chief. Good update on the the amount of work that has to go on those files. But I just wanted to kind of jump in and pull out two particular initiatives you mentioned, Christopher, around the bylaws and the meeting with the SOLJA. And I think that's more important now than ever. I jumped on the Chiefs of Ontario webcast to hear some updates. One was the work they're doing on bylaws, and I was, I'm going to be kind and just say that I was quite disappointed with their lack of knowledge on the file and where they're going with it. So I don't think we should start even separating ourselves even further from that particular work, because I think it's going to get confusing when we put our work in. Which I feel is a lot more direct, a lot more sophisticated around what we need, and also readiness. I feel we're more ready going forward. The other file I think needs some attention too is the carbon tax going forward. Again, I'll be kind. I was disappointed to hear the update from Chiefs of Ontario. They're not even meeting with the right agency. It's so embarrassing. So the inexperience at the helm at the Chiefs of Ontario right now is glaring, and I think we have to take our own approaches on that. So I'm just going to kind of highlight that carbon kind of discussion in terms of. I know we've done, the first tranche and we're able to provide a bit of a rebate to our communities, but I think there's a bit more to do on that file. So I just wanted to highlight those two and great work going forward.
Yeah, and Nathan, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nathan, and definitely agree with your highlights. I think, obviously, and we'll get into this a little bit of discussion in relation to really just the Chiefs of Ontario and the Assembly of First Nations. I think we've been discussing this, for quite some time now, in relation to how do we, best, position ourselves. I mean, we see what's happening at the Assembly of First Nations and the helm there. And the lack of, I would say, at times at the Chiefs of Ontario. I mean, to me, and I do agree, Nathan, it just makes more sense for us to directly just have these relationships and be able to, position ourselves with our needs to the different ministers and so forth, as opposed to, working through the Chiefs of Ontario or the AFN. So at this point, do agree, and Christopher, if we can make note to then further discuss this within the Chief's office and how we could, look to our next best steps in relation to the two files that Nathan had brought up and highlighted.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that. Is there any further questions or comments for Christopher or myself in relation to his update? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing none. So I will just look to seeing or hearing on motion is carried. The last item just before the adjournment is I wanted to put on is in relation to obviously the upcoming AFN Assembly. I know Councillor Sherry Lynn had brought this forward, and again, this is a little bit lateness on the Chief's office side. However, we will look to a mover and seconder to allow or rather look to open the floor to see if anyone else is available to attend. I know some may be attending in other capacities. Currently, Sherry Lynn and I are in Windsor at the Jade Treaty Border Alliance. She's currently at that meeting while I'm here chairing political liaison, so I'll join the Jade Treaty Alliance shortly, but I will look to see if there's any other interested councillors looking to attend the AFN Assembly in Vancouver. I know Sherry Lynn crazy.
Because I would like to go, but I don't feel like putting up with the airport.
I mean, it's definitely a challenge. We gotta it's a hike. I'll say that. Nathan.
I wouldn't mind going to the front end of it because there is some environment stuff going forward, and I think it's going to be important for us to maintain some of the agenda items within the AFN so it doesn't get hijacked. Because hearing it's going to get hijacked.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so I'll look to Nathan is showing interest. Sorry, I just want to confirm with you again, Helen. Are you so Nathan and Sherry Lynn are interested in looking to yourself as well?
So, Mark, do we have any meetings scheduled for that period?
So we actually one of our goals is to do side meetings, but there's just with everything that's happening, at the national chief level and so forth. I think those will be more focused in on actual in assembly.
No, I mean, do we council have any meetings scheduled for the period that the AFN is going on?
Oh, my apologies. I'll look to Tammy. Tammy,
because
can you
I
just
would question if we're going to have quorum.
Yeah, that's a good.
Monday morning would be general finance. That's the only one that, other than the human services, is Wednesday morning as well. But the only full council one on the books right now is Monday morning, general finance.
So if we have a number of councillors absent, we wouldn't have quorum then.
Well, I think
have at least.
I think what we can do though is because like even right now I'm in Windsor, we could still join in Vancouver virtually, so we may be okay there. But thanks for bringing that forward, Helen. Okay, so I'll look to then if I can get a mover and seconder. Moved by Michelle to accept for Nathan, Sherilyn, and myself to attend the AFN in Vancouver. Is there a seconder?
I'll second Hazel.
Second by Hazel. Are there any further questions or comments?
It's Melba.
Oh, sorry, Melba?
Melba, yeah. Helen brought up, about meetings, and that's really important. For example, the human services. If Sherilyn's going to be away, and of course Audrey is away, so that'll only leave me and Hazel. So it appears there won't be a human services meeting.
So we'll confirm with that shortly, Melba, because in the case we may be able to join virtually, or I can even the counselor who is at home to join. So, but what we can do is inform you once we've clarified it.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm going to go back to the motion then. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Motion to waive second reading. Moved by Michelle. Seconder?
Hazel.
Seconded by Hazel. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. So Nathan and Sherilyn will, if you can work with Tammy to add on for travel, so they can assist. The Chief's office will assist you in getting everything that you need if you need any assistance. Okay, Council, that's all I have for the open session of political liaison. At this point, will look to a motion to adjourn. Moved by Nathan, seconder.
I'll second Hazel.
Second by Hazel. All in favor? Any
Favor.
opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Thank you now to everybody for joining us this morning on Political Liaison, and I hope you have a great start to your week. Have a great day.